Awesome. Very likely we're just gonna have multiple people joining as we go because this is realtor time, not real time. I can say that because I'm a realtor, so I can make fun of realtors because I'm usually in realtor time too. So we'll go ahead and do that, but I just like to keep us to the time just for people's schedules. So we're gonna go ahead and first introduce our guests, you guys. Just as a reminder, we do this every Tuesday and Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern. You can calculate it for your own time zone if you're not on Eastern. And so join us anytime that you guys want. This is open to everyone and anyone. And, you know, we bring in guests most of the days. Sometimes Haley and I or Becky or other people in our group will also bring value. But usually we have guests. And I met Rick. How did we meet, Rick? Oh, I got an email. So this is email campaigns work, you guys.
That's right.
Because somehow I signed up on Rick's email. I don't even know where, probably social media or something. I probably saw a video that he did that I liked. Right. Something made me click on it. And all of a sudden I started receiving all of these awesome emails. And I was like, I wonder who this coach is. I've never met him before. And then I just reached out and said, I'd love to see if we could collaborate. Do you want to do a call? We did a call. The rest is kind of history in terms of collaboration. We've been collaborating, as you just heard. We're bringing him up to Coeur d'Alene to do an in-person event because he's down in Boise. So although it's a distance, it's not that far difficult for us to travel between locations. And I got to know a little bit more about him and thought, you know, what a great opportunity for him to come and contribute to our group, because our vision for this group, for those of you that are new to it, is really to bring other people with different skill sets, different coaching styles, different training styles, niches in their business that they've been able to, you know, really succeed in, and bring that forth in front of you guys. Because what we know is that we're all different, and what resonates with each of us and what niche we should each find and how we should each run our business is different. We're not all the same. And so I'm a firm believer that by bringing people in front of you, even when they're not, you know, those of us necessarily closely in our world, it is very valuable to everybody. And so I am going to quick introduce Rick, and then we're going to move into the presentation. He is an Amazon #1 bestselling author and a real estate coach. And he is going to talk today about 4 types of questions to ask clients to lead them into making a decision and to uncover their pain points. I think, Rick, this is so timely because we were just talking about this the other day, which is, you know, you've got to go find people that need to sell or are highly motivated to sell in this type of a market. It's not like 6 months or a year ago when everybody just thought about moving and then they were like, why not? Because it was going to be easy and it was going to be really affordable and it was going to probably be an easy financial decision. Today, that looks a little bit different. So we've got to be able to find pain points and understand what their motivations are so we can actually find people that are going to do something in this market. So I think
I say, Carrie, with that, I say we've moved into a skills-based market, right? The last 2 years were more of an order taker. I mean, business came at us and it was about being efficient, being Johnny on the spot and trying to get, you know, speed was really important. Now we've got a little bit more time, but
come on, Bang. Come on.
More skills.
Make sure you meet yourselves, guys.
So definitely it's a skills-based market. So I think it's great. You know, question-based selling is really important now.
Yeah. Question-based selling, skills, doubling down, probably understanding who you are as a person and the value you can provide and really going deep in that, being consistent, all the foundational things that you and I have learned over time, right, Rick?
Yeah, that's right.
And speaking of that, you were originally licensed in 1994, so you've been in the business for a long time. Yeah. You were a real estate agent for 6 years. Then you and your wife grew a large team. And you were also the CEO of the Keller Williams brokerage in Portland, Oregon. You doubled the size of that office in 1 year. You ran the #1 real estate office in the world from 2012 to 2014. That closed over $1 billion in sales with 425 agents. And so you've done a lot of things, from leadership, from selling real estate to building teams. And now you do a lot of coaching and training across the country, top teams, agents, et cetera. And I believe you do one-on-one group coaching, that sort of thing, which we'll get to towards the end of the presentation so people will know how to find you. Yeah. So without further ado, we're super excited to learn from you. I think this is going to be some tactical stuff that you guys can take away in your business right now. So get your notepad and paper out and get ready to take some notes. And we're going to let you take it away, Rick.
Yeah, thanks, Carrie. I appreciate it. Well, welcome everybody. Good to see all these smiling faces and names. So I want to go through today some things on a couple of books I'm going to teach you. One book is called Spin Selling. And if anybody has read that book, you know how great it is. It was written back in 1988 by Neil Rackham. I'll date myself. That was my senior year in high school, 1988. Good year. But so Neil, before you say, well, question-based selling, what was there before that? How else do you sell, Rick? It's like, well, before question-based selling really became a big thing, it was really more focused on what they called tell and sell, which was you tell people what they should probably do, and then you sold them on why, and you use closes like the alternative choice close. Like I see Brian on my screen. So Brian, would Wednesday at 2:00 work, or how about Thursday afternoon? Would that be better, right? An alternative close, a directive close, an assumptive close. So I learned all those. I mean, closing sales was like the big thing, right? Until question-based selling came along and said, really the best way to get somebody to not only make a decision, but to act on that decision is to ask them questions. And if you can be skillful at asking questions, they'll sell themselves on what they want to do. So it's our job as a salesperson to serve our clients. I love the root word of sales is selve, which means to serve people. That's really what it is. So if we're telling and selling, we're not really serving necessarily. We've gone in, and how many of you, by the way, how many of you like to be told what to do? Right? I don't see a lot of hands shaking up. Like nobody likes to be told what to do. In fact, in the book Spin Selling, they actually do some research. And if you're thinking about doing something, and then somebody comes along and tells you you should probably do that, now you're less likely to do it. That's how stubborn we are as people, right? We don't like to be told what to do. So spin selling is about asking questions. And just so you know, spin, I'll go through this here in just a few minutes. I want to go through some lead generation ideas first, but SPIN stands for something. It's an acronym. It stands for situation, then problem, then implication, and then needs payoff. So these are types of questions we're going to learn how to ask in that order: situation questions, problem questions, implication, and needs payoff. So we'll go through those and kind of talk about, in a real estate sense, how that works. I want to share my screen really quick here. Let's see if this will work. All right. Okay, everybody see the screen here, Carrie? Okay, perfect. So we're going to get into the first thing I want to talk about is this lead generation graph. I just drew a little plus because I want everybody to draw a plus. If you're taking notes or have a piece of paper, I'll send maybe a photo to you, Carrie, or I actually drew this out for a client recently. But I want you to draw a plus, and we've got 4 quadrants that we're going to go through on here. But the key is to understand on the right-hand side, I want you to write down hot leads. Hot leads on the right, on this vertical, or I'm sorry, on this horizontal line. Hot leads. And on the left side is cold leads. And the difference is hot leads are people that you know, people you've met before, or people that you know well. Cold leads are people you don't know. And on the vertical line on the top, we've got direct contact. And on the bottom, we have indirect contact. Okay, so we've got hot and cold on the right and left, direct and indirect on the top and bottom. So I'll stop there, share for a second, because I want to explain how this works now. So if this is how to lead generate. I think this is really important to understand what you are first before we go into asking questions. One problem I see real estate agents make all over the place, and I've been an agent for 28 years. I used to make this problem too. I dabbled in a lot of things, right? Instead of really getting good at a couple of things, which is what we should be doing, realtors love to shiny object syndrome. We love to see what this person's doing and that person's doing, and we go from this to that. So think about this. If you are somebody that likes to directly talk to people that you know, that would be the top right quadrant on your plus, the top right. People, direct contact with people you know, that's a networker. Okay, we call that person a networker. So write down networker. And then I want to write down like 5 or 6 things that networkers do. What does a networker actually do? Well, they take people to lunch. They take people to coffee appointments. They use their hobbies and interests to meet new people. They go to events, they do pop buys. Like they literally like to directly, either on the phone or in person, talk to people that they know. Right? That's what a networker does. I want you thinking about this because I'm going to go through all 4. Then you're going to have to pick. And I want a few people to share with me. I want you to pick 1, and maybe I'll allow 2, but you can't pick all 4. That's a big problem, right? We tend to dabble in everything. So we're going to start narrowing our focus right now. So the networker is the top right. Direct contact, people you know. So underneath a networker is indirect contact with people that you know. That's a marketer. So marketers like to send texts and emails. Maybe they do direct mail and mail postcards or letter campaigns. They write handwritten note cards. They do social media, right? They're indirectly talking to people that they know, not direct. Okay, that's what a marketer does. So that's the bottom right. Okay, now we move to the left-hand side of the graph. The left-hand side of the graph is now dealing with cold leads, which are people you don't know. So if you like, the top one is direct contact with a cold lead. That's a prospector. Okay, so the top left is prospector. I started my career in real estate as a prospector. A prospector, if they're serious, they probably have a dialer, maybe a headset. They use Arch Telecom or Mojo or Vulcan 7. I used Vulcan 7 and Red X for years. Use Circle Prospect, right? You're calling for sale by owners. You're calling expireds and canceled. I mean, if you're a prospector, just to give you an idea, I used to make between 80 and 120 cold calls a day. Every day. I did this for 4 years as a prospecting person. So some people love this, by the way. I can see some people saying, I don't love this, Rick. Some people actually like prospecting, talking to people that they don't know. Others do not, and that's okay. Here's one of my points I want to make on this. All of these work. Every single one of these works just fine. You don't have to do all of them. The key is you have to get good. So that's the problem with being a mile wide and an inch deep. When we dabble in 50 things, it's hard to get really good at one or two. But any one or two of these things, you can build a career on. Okay, that's why it's really important to figure out what it is that you like. So top left was prospector. Bottom left is indirect contact with people you don't know. That's a converter. So a converter is somebody that has systems in place. Like I had a really big team. We had some systems in place that would mail like an 8x8 postcard campaign or a letter campaign. Some people have an email drip campaign that just continues to drip on people until they say, hey, let's talk. Or they say, hey, Carrie, take me off your list, right? We've had a few of those. But the system converts them. You don't ever talk to them until they raise their hand. Does that make sense? So the converter likes systematizing things. And then once the people say, okay, I'm ready, now we go. So here's my question for you. Which one or two, how many of you, like maybe by a raise of hands, I can see most of your screens. How many of you resonate with a networker? That's probably one of your top two is the networker. Like to directly talk to people that you know, okay? So that's just about everybody on the call. It fits that one, okay? Joanne, I appreciate that. I see you driving. So networker is a lot of us. How about marketer? Does anybody on here like the marketing idea? Chrissy, okay. Carrie, yeah, you're definitely a marketer. Becky, you said marketer, that was you too? No, you're more networker. You're muted, Becky, by the way. Can you get it off? Can you take the mute off there?
There you go. Yeah, sorry. Mine is direct contact, the networker.
Okay, so networker is direct with people, you know, anybody a prospector?
Oh, that would be me. That's my second one for sure.
Okay, Becky and Jason are prospectors. Okay, good. How about converter? Likes being more systems oriented, likes the system to close people first. Okay, not as many of those. Okay, so a lot of networkers, marketers, and some prospectors. So here's my challenge to you. This is really important. This is more important than getting like one client from a friend next week or something. Like that's what most agents do. Most agents don't master their strategy and their system. And they get a client here or they get a client there. And we all know this. I mean, most realtors are half-hearted part-timers that don't do a lot of business. If we want to be better than that and be more successful than that, we need to make a decision on which one or two of these describes us. And then here's the key. Have a strategy session every week. So I like to do this on Monday mornings. You can do it whenever you want, but before the week starts, hopefully. So like Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, or Monday morning, have just a 30-minute block in your calendar. And I call it a strategy session where you just literally sit down and think, what am I going to do this week in my one or two categories? If I'm a networker marketer, let's say, am I going to do some open houses? That's probably a networker event. Am I going to take some people to lunch? Do I have some coffee appointments set up? If I don't have these things like literally in my calendar, I probably won't do them. So I'm going to put them in there ahead of time. I will literally put in 11 o'clock on Wednesday. a lunch appointment, 10 o'clock on Tuesday and 10:30 on Thursday, coffee appointments. And then I'll fill them with people. I'll find people to do those with. If I'm going to do pop buys, whatever I'm going to do, the strategy session is consistent. You do the strategy session every week at the same time, but then the action sessions that come from it can change and they vary every week. Does that make sense? But the key is to develop the habit of doing the strategy session first, where you just think through what you're going to do. And that the system and then having an action plan is really more important than getting a lead here and there. Because if you can master this kind of a system and get really good at creating action plans from your strategy sessions, you'll have a lot of business, not just one here and there. But it really gets down to figuring out what you're good at and what resonates with you. And if you don't know, if you're new in real estate, that's okay. We probably should dabble a little bit when we're new and trying several things to see what we like, see what we actually get results with. But if you've been in business for a few years, I would say, look back at your closings. I like to source my business, like the last 12 or 24 months. Where did they come from? Did they come from one of these 4 categories predominantly? And I will say most of you, it's going to be, it's going to be 1 or 2 of these categories. So then you say, well, Rick, what do I do with the other 2 categories then? Well, if you're a solo agent, so I was an individual agent until I teamed up with my wife, my first 6 years in real estate, traditional agent, right? I just did everything. If you're a solo agent, you've got to start thinking about if you can master lead gen, it could force you to either give referrals out to other people or build a team, right? That's the best way to build a team, by the way, is you have to build a team because you have so much business that you need leverage. That's really how to build a team. If you already have a team, that's the great thing about a team is they can fill some of these gaps and you can stay specialized. See, people didn't realize that my biggest year, when I moved from Portland, Oregon to Boise, Idaho was 2011. So it's funny little story. I moved and I was at the mall in Boise. It was in December. And I was looking for a Christmas present for my wife. And I ran into an agent who I knew already. I knew this agent. She was a pretty big producer. She's like a $25 million producer, but she was by herself with, I think she had 1 admin assistant. And I had a big team, right? So I came from Portland and she knew who I was. She said, oh, Rick, we ran into her at the mall. She goes, how was your year? I said, great. We kind of made some small talk. She goes, how'd you do this year with your business? I said, oh, we almost hit our goal. She goes, what was your goal? I said, my goal was 100 million and we did 97. And I'll never forget this, Gary. She looked at me and she goes, ugh. I would never want a business that does 97 million. She literally scoffed at me right there. And it was funny because I got where she was coming from. Mm-hmm. It wasn't the time or the place for me to explain this to her, but I literally thought to myself, wow, she does not understand how it works, how a business works. She's a practitioner. She's a really good practitioner. 25 million in real estate back in 2010. That's a lot of business. She knows what she's doing, but her mindset is it's me. I'm a practitioner. She's very good at what she does. Being a business owner is a completely different mindset. And it's a completely different skill set. I didn't bother to tell her at that time, but I was sitting here thinking, really, you don't want a business that does 97 million and you don't even live in that state anymore? I didn't say that to her, but I felt like saying, hey, I actually don't even live in Portland anymore. And I'm getting paid. She doesn't understand leverage, right? It's like, okay, guys, we need to first of all decide, do we want to be a practitioner and do everything ourselves, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to grow a team, the first thing that needs to change, and I see this mistake made a lot of times, is the first thing that needs to change is our mindset and how we think. Because a practitioner thinks, how quickly can I get this done? Mm-hmm. Practitioners are about efficiency. And there's some agents out there, probably some of you on this call, that are really good at what you do. And you can write an addendum and bang it out faster than anybody, and you're great at it. That's what a practitioner does. But if you remember the cash flow quadrant, if you read the book by Robert Kiyosaki, it's a great book. The left-hand side of the graph is the employee and the self-employed professional. The problem with that left-hand side of the graph is there's no leverage. The right-hand side of the graph was the business owner and the investor. If you guys remember that book, it was great. The only way to move from the left to the right is to change how we think. Instead of thinking, how quickly can I get this done? We need to think, who could do this for me? Who's actually better than me at this that could do it for me, right? I hired people that were better than me. So as my team got bigger and bigger, my role got more and more narrow and more focused. And I was only doing what I was really good at. Everything else I wasn't good at, I had somebody else that was good at it doing it. So I think that's a really important distinction to make. When we're talking about lead generating, I know, people want to start talking about cold calling and doing open houses. That's all great, but make sure it's in your lane. What is your lane? Number one, let's define it. And then let's get really good at the pieces and the parts of it. Does that make sense to everybody?
Mhm.
Yeah. I see that. I want to get a real quick feedback from people, because on this particular part before we move forward, what I see all the time in real estate is agents, they're like wandering generalities.
Yes.
They dabble in this and they dabble in that, and they try a little of this and they do some of that. And then they're frustrated because they're not getting traction in their business.
Yeah. I mean, I found more and more as I work with, agents across the country, Rick, that the riches are in the niches to some degree. And it doesn't have to be so niche down that you can't do other things. And yet, if you can focus on something that you really have a passion for and you just go deep in it, you'll probably have far more success. And so Haley and I were just doing a series on our Real Talk on Facebook, really kind of about this. It's kind of interesting about how you go back and look at who have you serviced in the past, like who has naturally become your client and why, and where did they come from? And, what value did you bring to them? And then it's just like recreating that for the next year, but going more specific. So, and then we went into what is that? How do you become the expert in that? And I mean, some people, when we talk about the riches are in the niches, it's just their hyper local market. It doesn't have to be like in probate or in, divorces, or sometimes it's in your hyper local market or in a sphere of influence, because like Brian is very, very involved in hockey in his community. Everybody knows him. Well, that's a niche, and you just have to figure out how you go deep in that. And sometimes we get so distracted to go all these other places that we're missing like 10, 15, 20 transactions in that niche that if we just went a little bit deeper in it, we would have. And I think that's our mind playing tricks on us, telling us that we aren't productive enough or we're not doing enough. And we don't have faith in the outcome if we go deep on this. So we've got to train our brain and our activities towards it to get the result, right?
Well, at least if you have a niche, people can find you, right? It's like, so where I live in Boise in Ada County, there's 11,000 now agents in Ada County. It's like, well, okay, how are you going to stand out, and how are people going to find you if you're not known for something? So one of my favorite questions to ask a realtor up front is, what are you known for? And if you don't have an answer to that question, then you're not getting as much business as you could. Like being known for something. If you're the hockey guy, so I was the fly fishing guy. I started a fly fishing club in Portland. I got a ton of business through my fly fishing club and I raced sports cars for 9 years. So I was a race car driver. So those two niches was most of my business, other than just friends and family and things like outside that and referrals. But as far as a niche goes, if you're not, I always say this, if you're not known for something, then you're just vanilla, right? You're just one of the other 10,000 agents or 11,000 agents in your board. It's like, well, how are people going to find? People are afraid, I think sometimes, Carrie, to like pigeonhole themselves in a niche. Well, I'm the condo guy, or I'm the view property guy, or I'm the downtown, whatever. It's like, but at least people can find you. That doesn't mean that's all you do, but it's a focus for your marketing efforts. And it's a focus for advertising dollars, social media, YouTube videos. And if you start to get some traction, get known and being an expert in that one thing, you can certainly do all kinds of other stuff, but at least people find out who you are. Yeah, I love that. So let me go back into this. I want to share this screen again. All right. So question-based
as you guys
selling.
are making notes, you should be asking yourself this question: what am I known for?
What are you known for?
What are you known for as an agent, but what are you known for as a human being too? Right. Yeah. So don't get too lost in that. Like, I'm not known for anything in real estate other than just helping my friends and family. Well, then what are you known for, or what could you, or what should you be known for as just a human being, or a participant in your community, or, dig deep in those questions, because everybody has something. And you know what? I find people, Rick, they let go of their hobbies and the things that they could be known for, because they get too distracted doing other things in their business that isn't giving them business. And if they would just go back and do that, they would actually create their following and probably get more business and do something they like. And
they'd like it.
Yeah, it'd be more fun.
Yeah, that's I love building my business around my hobbies. That's my favorite thing to do, is because you're going to do it anyway. I've coached brokerages to start mountain bike groups, snow ski groups, my fly fishing club. I was like, if you're going to be doing this stuff anyway, why not invite other people to do it? And then it expands from there. So what do you like? Think about what you like, what your interests and your hobbies are, and figure out, okay, can I either join groups or start my own groups in those areas? Yeah. I love that. So spin selling, I want to give you guys a summary of this. So spin selling, situation question is the first kind of question. This is pretty obvious. It's established. If you have a buyer consult, I hope that you on the call have some sort of a process you take new buyers through when you first meet somebody. This is where you're going to start, is their current situation. Where do you live now? Do you own or do you rent? How far are you away from your work, right? Just like basic questions to establish context. You're discovering facts about their situation. Do they have a family? Do they have kids in school? You know, what kind of things are they going to start to be concerned about? Because what you're looking for as you start to establish the situation in your mind, the context, is what's the problem. People don't move. They don't buy a house or sell a house unless they're trying to solve a problem of some sort, right? So what is this problem? So what we're trying to do is find out, as you said earlier, I think Carrie, you said the pain. I like to call it poke the pain. Right? We want to clarify, but not solve. That's really big, important here. Don't solve the problem. We want to grow it, because if we can grow the problem, they'll solve it. They'll want to solve it and they will want to take action. But if we jump in with solving, that's tell and sell. That's old school selling. Well, it sounds like you should do this, right? So here's a classic example in real estate. A person says, hey, we're interested in your house on, 34th Street. Oh, great. That's a great house. So then you start asking them questions. Where do you live now? Do you own or do you rent or whatever? You find out, oh, they live in a 2-bedroom townhouse and they're pregnant with twins. And the extra bedroom they have right now is their home office. So, I mean, what do you think the problem is? Obviously, us in real estate can probably guess the problem is going to be they need more room, right? They need more space. They have a 1-bedroom and they have twins coming. But we don't tell them that, though. If we tell them, well, sounds great. Why don't you come look for some 4-bedroom houses? What happens is when you start telling people what to do is they entrench in their mind and they start thinking about all the reasons they're not ready yet to do things. But if we can ask them questions, then they start thinking about why they might want to. It's a completely different track for their mind. I'm going to stop this share real quick because I want to share this story with you. Let's say Carrie and I are going to go fly fishing up in Northern Idaho. So Northern Idaho is beautiful, right? Lots of lakes. So she's got a cabin up there and I go with Carrie and we drive in a car up to her cabin and we fly fish for the weekend. It's all great. I come back, I go back to my house on Monday and I realize I forgot my wallet up there. So I've got to go back to her cabin, which is in the middle of nowhere in the woods, right? How easy is it going to be for me if I was riding in the car with her, she was driving, how easy is it going to be for me to find that cabin? Probably not very easy, right, Becky? It's like, I mean, I wasn't really paying attention, even though I was in the car. She was driving though. So all the lefts and rights and turns we took, she was having a different experience than I was. If she had to drive back to that cabin, would it be easier for her? Of course it would, because she was paying attention. She was fully involved. So that's my analogy for asking questions. If you're asking someone questions, you're keeping them in the driver's seat. They are experiencing the emotion of this process. As soon as we start telling them something, here's what you should do, and here's why, they're now the passenger. They're there, but they're not having that same emotional experience. Does that make sense? It's really important to keep people in that driver's seat. And the way to do that is to not fall for the temptation to tell them what to do. Like I've been an agent for almost 29 years now. In April will be 29 years. I can probably guess most of the time when I talk to a client what their challenge is. But if I assert that and I tell them, I could be wrong, number one, but even if I am right, how many of us raised our hands earlier that said we like to be told what to do, right? None of us. So even if I am right, I'm really kind of missing my best influence on them. My best influence is to ask them questions and draw them through the process. So let me go back here into these problem questions. I'm gonna give you some examples of each one of these because I think you'll like them. So problem questions reveal and identify, but not solve the pain. Okay. Then we go into implication questions. This is what I call future pacing. I like to future pace people. What if we don't solve this? So you're telling me you need more room. It sounds like if you've got a couple of babies on the way, you've got twins. What is it going to be like if you're still living in this townhouse in 3 years? Right? That's an implication question. Now they're like, no, I mean, they're going to tell me they don't want to do. I don't have to tell them that. I just ask them a question. I'm future pacing them. The implication of not solving this problem in their mind is terrible. They don't want to deal with this. No, they feel the pain more acutely when you ask implication questions. Instead of telling them, sounds like we need to move, we should ask them, what would it be like if you still lived here in 3 years with the twins? Now they're going to feel that pain. right? And then need payoff questions are when they tell you the solution, right? Get them to articulate the solution. Don't tell them what they should do. Again, it's very, very tempting to do this. If we haven't practiced spin selling, if we're not really good and skilled at asking these types of questions, you'll notice it's very easy to go right back to tell and sell. We'll tell people what to do and why to do it. I mean, the classic one in real estate is, well, we love you, Carrie, and you did a great presentation and we do want to sell, but we're going to wait till spring, right? You ever hear that one? Well, a very common response in a tell and sell framework is, well, why would you wait till spring? Why don't you sell right now? We go right into what they should do. I don't know what interest rates you're going to do next spring. Who knows what the economy is going to be like. I mean, right now, houses are selling. They might be, none of that matters. As soon as we started telling them anything, their brain kind of like shut off. They're now the passenger in the car. You can give them 1,000 reasons why they should sell with you now. They're going to give you 1,001 excuses why they're not ready. So instead of tell and sell, what I do is call catch the pass. If somebody says, well, Carrie, we like you a lot, we're going to list with you probably next spring. First thing I would do is catch that pass, not bat it down. I want to catch it. I say, oh, that sounds good. What's important about next spring? Right? Ask them a question, like find out what is going, because maybe there is something legitimate. Sometimes they're just putting us off because they're not ready. But sometimes there's literally something my, daughter graduates high school, or we're getting transferred with our job, or there's something specific about next spring. But we wouldn't know that if we just go right into tell and sell. We're going to miss these subtleties. Okay. So I want to go through some examples of each kind. So here's some situation questions. If anybody has like a call intake sheet, if you use those, or like a buyer intake sheet, if you're sitting down with someone at a buyer consultation, you probably have questions like this on there. This is situation questions. Where do you live? How far of a commute do you have? Like, how many bedrooms and baths do you currently have right now? Do you currently own or rent? Right? These are things we would ask to give us a clear picture of what their situation is. Then we look for what's the problem potentially. When they said, well, we're pregnant with twins and we only have 2 bedrooms, how concerned are you about having very little space? Right? Or they said they love to entertain and they have a very small galley kitchen with no counter space. What kind of problems does that cause? Now we're asking them questions where they're going to tell us what they don't like about what they're doing and where they're living. Are you happy with this? How well are you able to cope with? Right? These are problem questions to grow in their mind what those problems might be. Then when they answer that, we go into implication questions. The implication is, if you don't change your current situation, what's your life gonna look like in 3 years? We don't necessarily say it that way, but you bring up the problem that they're trying to solve. And if that's not going to be fixed in the next 2 to 3 years, what is your life going to look like? And now they're really feeling pain. They don't like this. The implication question is what causes them to take action. How fine do you find the problem not having enough space cause other issues? Now, we get in a lot of fights. I've had couples tell me that. We can do a lot of arguments, Rick, because of our kitchen, or different things, right? And so we can bring that to the surface. What sort of consequences does that lead to? What are the issues of only having 1 or 2 bathrooms with a growing family? And then the need payoff questions. So how would you solve the bedroom issue when you've got the twins coming, right? Ask them. And then they'll tell you, oh, well, we're actually thinking about buying a 4-bedroom house, or whatever they're going to tell you. It's like, great. And then you can pull up the MLS and start going down the road of showing them property. But until they've made that mental transition, until they're really wanting to do it, it's too early for us. It's going to be more like the tell and sell situation where they're going to entrench. So we want to bring this out. Are you saying it would be helpful if, I always love that line of questioning. Are you saying it would be helpful if we found a house that had more bedrooms or a bigger backyard or a larger kitchen with more counter space? Yes, right? Then they are involved in telling you that. I want to stop it right here and ask you, does this make sense to everybody? Have you kind of used these types of things before, the spin selling? Do you see how it can be really helpful versus the very common tell and sell? And especially if you're a parent, right? So I've got 2 teenagers, a teenage boy and a teenage girl. It's very easy to fall into tell and sell. Like, do this because I said so, right? But we can do it to a lesser extent with our clients. Because like I said earlier, a lot of times we already know the answer. We know what's better for them, right? So it's just challenging. Oh, my screen just changed here, got distracted me. It's challenging if we don't know the spin selling process. If you're good at a process, you actually remember things better as well. Like if you have a process for your listings or you have a process for your buyers that you take them through every single time, you'll remember all the nuances about that particular buyer because it matched a roadmap you already had. Same thing with these lines of questions. If you get really good at spin selling questions, asking them these types of questions, you'll remember their answers better and be better able to lead them. Okay. So feedback, I want to hear some feedback on this. What do you think of this? Becky? Oh yeah, you're muted, Becky.
Yeah, everybody's going to start talking at once, so I'll go ahead, right?
Yeah.
So what I find is, and again, I've been selling for many, many years as well. I think that we get into a lot of times into this because we haven't practiced it, right? We can hear it conceptually, it makes sense. But then just like you see athletes do when they go out there and run their plays over and over and over and over again, we then have to kind of do that same thing, right? So I say that the one item that's missing, I think, from the execution piece of this would always be the practice that you've got to have.
Yeah, you got to practice it over and over again, right? That's right. And so for me, I like to practice it on my family, practice it on my kids. So the next book I want to talk to you guys about after Spin Selling. So Spin Selling was written in 1988 by Neil Rackham. The next book I want to go over is kind of an extension of Spin Selling. It's called 6 Steps to Instant Influence. Has anybody heard that before? So Instant Influence by Michael Pantalon. It was written in 2014, and it's like a 2.0 of Spin Selling, basically. And I have literally used this many times with clients, and I'll give you a couple examples. I've used it with my son on his homework, and I've used it with coaching clients and real estate clients. But I want to share with you how this works. So let me get to the, here we go. I'm going to share this next screen. I want to give you some real world examples on instant influence. It's called 6 Steps to Instant Influence by Michael Pantalon. So he's building on what Neil Rackham started. And instant influence is kind of like, if you've ever read the book Good to Great, it's more of a research-based book. It's not a lot of fun necessarily to read, although there are some really funny dialogues. There's probably 40 or 50 different dialogues in the book, like between a couple, and that one person wants to go camping and the other one doesn't. And so then it types out in the book what they say. And if you're like me, you'll laugh out loud when you read this book because we've done every single one of them. I've done every single one of the dialogues in the book multiple times. And it talks about tell and sell, how normal it is and how we all do it. And it gives examples of tell and sell. And it talks about why tell and sell doesn't really work. So the 6 steps, I want to give you the 6 steps, and I'll share with you how I use them. These are the 6 steps to instant influence. So first of all, I want to clarify, you don't say the word change. The word change represents whatever you're trying to get them to do. So like my son, for example, I used to try and get him to do his homework right when he got home from school, because he would wait until like midnight when he was like in 8th grade and early in high school. And then he'd have 2 hours worth of homework. And so he's always cranky. He was always up too late. And so I would tell and sell him all the time. Well, here's what you should do. Right when you get home from school, you should do your homework. And he'd have 1,000 excuses why he didn't want to. And he needed some downtime and he was burned out from school and whatever. So I finally started using instant influence on him, and it worked. And I actually, since that day, I've used this probably hundreds of times with different clients. I don't always do all 6 steps. I'll go through the 6 and then I'll kind of show you how I would do it and how I've done it in the past with success. But step 1 is, why might you change? So why, if Carrie is talking to that client who wants to list their house, why might you list now in the 4th quarter instead of waiting till spring? Instead of telling them you should list now, just ask them, why might you? What would some reasons potentially be for you to do this? Why might you do your homework right when you get home from school instead of waiting till midnight? And don't put any agenda on it. Just literally ask them. Because if you remember the book Drive by Daniel Pink wrote a book called Drive, The Surprising Truth Behind What Motivates Us. And he really found out there's only 3 things that motivate people: mastery, autonomy, and purpose. Mastery, getting good at something, is motivating. Autonomy, doing things your way, is motivating. And then purpose, doing it for a big reason. So this is taking into account autonomy. That's what this is addressing. As soon as we start to tell them something, we've taken away their autonomy. So we ask them instead, why might you do whatever it is the outcome we're talking about? The second one, I always say, play along with me on this. So Carrie, play along with me on a scale of 1 to 10. Like, how ready are you to list now versus waiting till spring? With 1 being like, there's no way we're going to do this. We can't do it at all. Or 10 is, let's list today. And what I found in doing this a lot is people that really don't want to do something will give you like a 3, a 2 or a 3. And if they kind of want to do something, they'll give you a 7 typically. I get a lot of 7s if they really want to do something. But here's the key to instant influence. Number 3, why didn't you pick a lower number? The trick about this question is it gets the brain to think about why you want to do things. The problem with tell and sell is it keeps people in the mindset of why I don't want to. I don't want to, Rick, we're not ready. We have to paint the back bedroom still. The yard looks like, crap. There's all kinds of clutter in the garage. We have to get a storage unit. I mean, we are not ready. So if you say, why aren't you more motivated? I thought you wanted to do this. Like, they're very used to tell and sell, and they're very, very ready to give you all kinds of excuses. But when you say, well, if they say, well, we're like a 2 or 3. Well, why didn't you pick a lower number? Well, almost everybody, I've done this before. Almost everybody says, well, and then they're thinking, because their brain is like shifting gears. They're thinking about why they want to do it. We do want to sell. I mean, here's our problem. We're trying to solve I mean, we do want to do this. Now their brain's on a completely different track. It's like why they want to. And that's where I want them to go in the first place, right? That's really powerful, that transition. And so number 4 is future pacing. I love future pacing. And number 4 is exactly that. Imagine you've sold already. You didn't wait till spring. What would the positive outcomes be? Like, we can probably guess, well, they've got they've got a ski trip planned over Christmas and they're going to be worried about the house or whatever. It's like, but if we ask them, they'll tell us what's really important. It's like, imagine you sold already. I asked my son, imagine you did your homework early in the day. What would the positive outcomes be? And then let them tell you. And this is what I ask AWE questions. Number 5 is, and what else? And what else? So number 5 is where I dig. You say, why are those outcomes important to you? And at each one they've given you an outcome, why is that important to you, right? And really get them to feel the emotion of it. If you can do that, they will want to make a change. They're going to be the ones that want to act. We don't have to tell them to act. They're going to want to do it on their own. And so number 6 is really powerful because this is the autonomy thing again. What's the next step then, if any? Ideally, they would say, well, sounds like we got to get that storage unit going and have you come over to the house and tell us what we need to do. I mean, ideally, they'll start taking steps. Sometimes they're ready right away. Usually they're not, but they at least are moving now. We've got them going because they wanted to go. And that's a big help versus where they were when we started, where they didn't want to do anything. But the next step, if any, so I had a coaching, I'll give you another real life story. I had a coaching client. So she's a top producer here locally in Middleton, Idaho, which is a suburb of where I'm at. And I'd known her since she got I knew her mom. So I'd known her since she got her license. And she was always talking about hiring me as a coach. And Rick, I need to hire you as a coach. And we talk about it. And she never would. Like for years, we talked about this. So finally, I took her to lunch. I took her to Black Rock Coffee right over here on Linder. I took her to I can see it from my office. Black Rock Coffee. This is 6 years ago now. And I said, I just read Instant Influence and I was starting to practice it. And I told her, I said, I was going to use this process. It's a question asking process. I want to go through these 6 questions. Is that okay? She's like, great. I was like, perfect. I said, so why would you hire a coach? Like, I literally went through this. And she said, well, she kept saying she's scattered. She's disorganized. She doesn't have any system. She's a big producer, right? But here she's telling me the real dirty laundry, which is, I don't know what I'm doing, Rick, and I'm super scattered. I said, well, okay, play along with me. I said her name, play along with me on a scale of 1 to 10. And she gave me a 7. I said, how ready are you to hire me as a coach? She had a 7. I said, why didn't you pick a lower number? It was classic. She went through the whole thing. She said, well, I do think I would be benefited if I had a coach. And I said, imagine you've hired me. Imagine you had a coach. What do you think the positive outcomes are going to be? What's going to magically change? And she said, accountability was one of her big things. I think I need focus and I need somebody to kind of guide me through all the stuff I'm doing that's a waste of time and make sure I've got the right priorities. And I kept asking her, why was that important to her? And why was that important to her? Because she feels disorganized and scattered, not efficient. So literally when I said, so what's the next step then, if any? It was funny. She goes, I guess I'm hiring you as a coach. I mean, it worked. And I coached her from that day on. It was really funny. And her business went up a lot since we started working together. But she will joke about this, that I literally used that process to get her to make a decision, because we talked for 2.5, almost 3 years about coaching before then, but it was finally getting her to feel the emotion that caused her to make the difference. That's the biggest problem in selling. If we're not skilled at asking questions, is they're not feeling, they know the pain is there and they don't really like it, but it's not, change is still more painful. Does that make sense? There's still more pain involved in, making that change is something I don't want to do. And if you can get them to understand making the change is less painful by future pacing them and growing the problem, they'll make that decision on their own to change. Okay. What do you guys think of that one? You like Instant Influence? Not a good one. So if you haven't read it, you can I have it on Audible, and I also have the paperback version of it. But if you listen to it on Audible, you'll probably laugh during some of it, because when they go through those dialogues and they do the husband and the wife and they do the tell and sell thing with each other constantly, it's classic. It's really funny. So give me some feedback. Any comments on that? What did you think? What did you learn on instant influence?
It was great. Can you put the last slide back up again quick?
Absolutely, Angie.
Thank you.
Let's see. This one? Yeah. So those are the six steps. So I was going to tell you one thing I commonly do. I don't always do all six. It depends on who the client is. If I don't know them at all and it's a brand new person to me, it sometimes feels a little awkward to do the scale of 1 to 10 thing. I've done it with people I don't know and it works just fine. But sometimes I'm like nervous to do it. I don't know why. So I go 1, 4, 5, 6. I'll skip 2 and 3 at that point. I'll go 1, ask them why they're thinking about, what it is they're trying to do. And then I immediately future pace them. I say, so let's just imagine you've done this. Imagine you've sold, or imagine you've listed, or imagine you've whatever. What would the positive outcomes be? That gets them going in the right direction right then. So sometimes I don't do 2 and 3. This depends on how comfortable you are with it. But the key to any of this, like running routes, she said earlier, is mastering it. Get really good so we can interchange how we ask these questions. Because that's the point. We want them to make the decision. If we tell them what to do, right? I teach a whole class on the DISC profile. And if you're talking to people that are similar to you have a much better chance of landing with them. But even then, it's not as powerful when you tell somebody what to do as it is drawing it out of them and asking them what they would do. Right? Yeah. Well, I've got comments here. So questions, Carrie, or comments on that?
I don't. Let me just make sure that we have no
Move
I
to
don't
home.
think
So
we have
I'll send this. I can send this PowerPoint to you, Carrie. Can I send it to you?
Yeah.
And then you can get it to everybody, because I'm seeing people put their email addresses in there. If I get it to you,
I will do that.
Okay.
Yep.
I will send it to Carrie then. One thing to understand too, when we start talking about asking questions to get people to make a decision, we really would benefit from understanding our DISC profile, or our Myers-Briggs, our MBTI. If we haven't done that yet, you need to do that. And then take into account who your audience is.
Yeah.
Because that's if I'm an ID, so I talk fast, right? I talk fast, I think fast. If I'm talking to somebody that I know on a one-on-one situation is more of a C, so they're more of a processor, they're more conscientious, they're more detail oriented, I need to adjust how I speak to them. I probably need to give them more comps, more backup, more data, because that's what the C likes, is data and information, right? And less about the emotion and the fun, the things that an I would like to hear about. So I think kind of a prerequisite before we really start mastering question-based selling is you need to take the MBTI or the DISC and get really good at understanding who you are and how you're landing with other people. So then you mentioned coaching earlier, Carrie. Is this the time for me to bring up what I do there?
Yeah, absolutely. And then we'll do a Q&A, but I think people are going to want to get this. And then if you can, we'll put all of your information in the chat so people can grab it. And then I'll go ahead and grab this and post it under the live stream, because we have a number of people watching live stream as well.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I can put up there. So I do 2 types of coaching, one-on-one coaching, but my newest thing I started in September is group coaching. It's called Real Estate Super Achievers. So that's my website, is realestatesuperachievers.com. I will share this little slide with everybody. So if you have questions, please send them to Carrie, or you can send them to me as well. But Real Estate Super Achievers is a group I started. There's 28 of us now. It's grown, where we have a Zoom call twice a month. And we talk about things like lead generation. Tonight, we're going to do a little bit more on question-based selling actually tonight, but we started off talking about branding in September and October, really developing a niche. We went through that pretty deeply. And then now we're in a deep dive into lead gen. But what you get is 2 one-hour Zoom calls every month that we do in the first and the third Tuesday of the month. So tonight we're doing one. We have a private Facebook group. So I do videos. We just say, okay, guys, what what is it you would want to know about more? Like somebody had one last time on relocation. Another person said, well, how would you hold an open house? So I did 20-minute videos on each topic. So every week I'll do videos, and I've got a marketing guy, Nathan, who's a wonderful help for me, that does videos like how to get Google reviews. So how to get your company ranked in Google, then how to get the link, how to send the link out, step by step with a whiteboard, how to do certain things. So those are all available to our private Facebook group. Everything we do, we put in a PDF. So we have information to follow back up on as well. And then we have, I think 5 of the people in our group right now are brokerage owners that have pretty good sized brokerages. So we talk about, what things they're seeing that are working, what things they're seeing that are not. And the neat thing is I've got, I think, 7 states represented right now. So there's different markets. So we can start to find out what other people are seeing and what other people are doing. But the website is realestateSuperachievers.com. Yeah. So the difference is obviously the one-on-one coaching, which I do with people. And that's what I've done for a long time. It's been my bread and butter. It's more expensive, right? So how many agents can I actually influence and help in a one-on-one setting versus a group setting? It's like, I can help a lot more people in a group setting and make it more affordable for more people. That was the idea.
Awesome. So questions, and I love it. I think small groups, this is why we do what we do in here every single week. It's because we learn from each other. We've got people from all over the country. We can share, we can bring in topics. By the way, that just reminds me, topics that you guys have interest in learning about, make sure that you work chat me, because we have a lineup tomorrow. We have circle prospecting, we have open houses, we have social media, we have absentee owners. We've got a whole bunch of things that we've got experts coming in the month of November and starting to book out December, but we might be forgetting something. So if there's a niche or a strategy that you really want to learn more about, because like Rick shared at the beginning of this call, find what brings you some joy or what might be more in alignment with you naturally, and let's hone your skill on that and go deeper on that. That's what we want to do, is bring that to you guys. So, I wanted to throw that reminder out there to please work chat me. Questions for Rick. Let's ask questions. He's really, really knowledgeable in selling. He's going to be able to answer some things for you, give you some tips if you're stuck on something for your own business. While we have him here for the last 5 minutes, let's utilize the time. Lisa, I saw you unmute. You have a question?
Yeah, well, actually, hold on one second, Carrie. Brian was asking about where to get the disc profile. And I know that there is a Tony Robbins one that's free, but it's $20 if you want the full report, and you definitely want the full report. Rick, do you have a website that they can go to get the full report for free, or is there one that you recommend that's paid?
That's the one I use. I use the Tony Robbins one. Yep.
Yep. It's the best one
I use. I'm certified in the MBTI. So I went to Denver and spent a week and a half in 2017 getting certified in the Myers-Briggs. So I've taught the Myers-Briggs for years, but it's $100. I like the disc. It's free. It's easy. And if you want the report, I agree with you, Haley. But that's the one. That's exactly the link I use right there. The Tony Robbins link.
Yep. Perfect.
And I teach a whole class on that. In fact, when I come up to Coeur d'Alene, I want to spend a little time, Carrie. I'm going to go through Atomic Habits, but I do want to spend some time teaching the disc. I think that'll be it's fun. And I've got some fun examples to kind of exaggerate each style, but I think it'll be really helpful for people as well.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, it's important to know your own style so that you can devise your business plan around it, but it's also important for you to be able to understand other people so that hopefully you can adapt. And it's just a skill to have.
Yeah.
Anybody else as we're wrapping up? Lisa?
We use the disc profile with our newly licensed agents in our coaching program because they don't know, what they're going to be good at. So it sort of gives them some ideas on what to do, what they might enjoy based off of their disc profile. So I love that you're doing that as well.
Yeah, that's great, Lisa. Yeah, I will send the PowerPoint to you, Carrie, too, so people can send it out to other people. That'd be great.
Perfect. And we've got a bunch of things here in the chat. Make sure before you log off, you grab these links and you grab this information. You can just copy and paste. Haley posted the book, The Spin Selling, that Rick mentioned. So grab that if you want to. You have information on how to reach out to Rick. You can also reach out to me and I can connect you if for some reason you misplace it. I'll get the PowerPoint. If anybody wants it, please work chat or email me and I'll get it over to you, or text me, whatever's the easiest way. I'll get that to you as well. And this has been really, really great. If you guys are interested in, finding the right coaching program and maybe doing it in a group setting, so it's more affordable, and I think that's important to some people moving into this market. But number two, I just think more people collaborating ends up bringing more value anyway, many times. I was excited to hear when Rick said he was doing that. It looks like there's been a number of people joining since we last talked, Rick, which is awesome. You know, consider that we are here to just figure out who do you feel like you resonate with and you could learn from. It doesn't matter to us who it is. We want you to be successful, find your tribe. And I think we'll bring Rick back and he'll do some other trainings as well here on Zoom, because we've got, you know, some more things we can pull out of Rick, I'm sure. And so watch for that. Rick,
Yeah, Carrie, we have one more question.
Hey, I was
before
going to
we
say,
leave.
I want to address that
Yeah.
one question real quick.
Yep.
There's a question in the chat, Carrie. It says, from the beginning, what's the quickest way to know which of the 4 quadrants you should choose? So if you're like a newer agent, you know, and you don't want to be spread thin right away, where should you go? I guess my advice, I'd be interested in hearing what yours would be, Carrie, too, is I would start with proactive things first. So, because that's the quickest way to business. I mean, we can do the, you know, so the top of the graph is the networker and the prospector. Those are proactive people talking directly to people. The marketer and the converter are more indirect, and they're great. There's nothing wrong with them. They do take longer, however, and they're more expensive. The top 2 are typically, you know, your time and your energy, but, you know, talking to people isn't as expensive as sending postcards and sending mailers out. So I would start with the top 2, which is networking and prospecting, and you'll resonate one way or the other. Do you like talking to people that you know? Do you like going to hobbies and groups and connecting with people? Or do you not mind banging the phones? I mean, some people really don't.
Yeah. And it's interesting, Rick, I've noticed in all my years of coaching, it's almost 50-50 when I ask people, they either prefer one or the other, you know, pretty dramatically.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, you just have to know what that is and know that it's okay either way, because you can do things that benefit you and your business either way. And I completely agree with you. We have to get into actual activities of talking to people. I think if you're new, to gain that momentum. And once that momentum is going, then you start adding in the other 2. That seems to be best for most people.
I agree. Absolutely. Yep. If somebody said,
Great
hey,
question.
I'll pay you $1 million if you get a listing today, what would you do? I mean, the first thing you do is, for me, if it was me, I would start calling for sale by owners, because I did that for years. I know how to talk to for sale by owners. I think I'm good at it. And to me, the prospecting quadrant is the fastest way to get business now. If I need business now, that's what I'm going to do. If you say, Rick, I can't prospect, I hate talking to strangers, networking then. Talk to people that you know.
Yep.
Build value somehow for them.
I was just going to say, bring value to people that you know, help them connect with people, help them build their business, go to the other business owners, you know, and ask them what you can do to help them. How can we collaborate together? You know, get coffee meetings for people to discuss marketing strategies, other entrepreneurs in different businesses that could give you business and vice versa. That for a lot of people is very natural and doesn't feel salesy, but it's really bringing value and developing the relationship. So as Rick said, there's no right or wrong, but you have to commit to something and then go for it and do it consistently and get better at it. Otherwise, you're just dabbling in a bunch of things that never have enough time to actually come to fruition.
And what you said, Carrie, was really good. So there's my favorite 2 ways to get referrals. My favorite way, number 1, is to give referrals. That's what you just said, right? If you know people that own a business or they have a company where they can get business too, they're not, you know, an admin role, then send them business. That is the best way for you to get referrals, is for you to help them build their business. The second best time for me to get referrals is ask for them when somebody compliments me. If somebody says, oh, I can't believe how smooth your paperwork was, or whatever, they compliment some aspect of your business, say, you know what, we've worked a long time to get better at that. I really appreciate you noticing. If you can tell your friends and family about it, that's the best thank you I can get, is for you to tell other people. So when they compliment you, that's your chance to ask them for a referral. But in the other way, so the 2 ways are, find somebody that can use referrals and send them referrals. And then when somebody gives you a compliment, those are my 2 favorite times.
Yeah, that's amazing. And that's, you know, here's the thing. How easy is that? Go make a list of 10 people that you can figure out how to help them find referrals. Actually talk to your database and share about them to see if you can uncover some opportunities for them. And then it gets you in front of your database in a way that isn't salesy, right? Like, you know, have you talked to somebody recently that needs something? How can you go find somebody to make that referral and then purposefully build that relationship? I think that's awesome. And Rick, most people ask for referrals after the transaction. And I completely agree with you. It has to be during, and at times that they're excited and thankful for what you're doing. Right in that moment is the time that you ask. That is huge.
Well, it's that reticular activating system, right? So we all know that if you buy a car, you learn a word and all of a sudden you start seeing it everywhere. When people are in the process of buying or selling a house, they see other people in the process of buying and selling a house. That's the best time to make sure you're asking for referrals.
That's exactly right.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, a lot of these things were great. I hope you guys took notes. We'll get the PowerPoint to anybody that needs it. Rick, we'll have you back. Thank you so much. I'll be in touch with you on some other things.
Thanks,
and
Carrie.
thanks for joining you guys. We'll see you tomorrow for Circle Prospecting. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.